Welcome to another episode of Tigers SRD here on SportsRadioDetroit.com. Rod Castillo alongside me live from Fort Collins, Colorado this evening. Is it a 2 hour? It's mountain time, so you're 2 hours. So it's 7:58 or 7:53 right now out there as time of recording?
Yeah. Still feels like about 10 o'clock, but yeah. It's only 7:50 here.
So is that the first time you left that gone out that west in a while?
Yeah, I have a friend in Denver who I went to visit a couple times, like 6 years ago. But this is the first time I've been out west since then. Yeah.
So Fort Collins, huh? Is that also a high altitude? I'm trying not to sound ignorant of Colorado, but I have no idea.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know a whole lot. Apparently, it's about a mile high, but it's still kind of in the foothills. Like you can see the mountains off to the west, but there's not any mountains close by. It's really kind of strange. It's a lot of plains, and by plains I mean flat, long flat land. There's tumbleweed out here. Like you see it flying across the road. I'm like, whoa, tumbleweed exists.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So there's Fort Collins is not too far away from Denver, and I know that Denver's got that area is known for a lot of good, like outside of the obvious thing about pot and what have you, but there's also some really good cuisine out there.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. My uncle's checked out the pot, but yeah, I don't know. I have to. I'm here for another day and a half, so I have to check it out a little bit more. Get out and about. It was 60 degrees here today.
Nice. Yeah. There's a lot of a lot of their Mexican food. They use a lot of the green chilies chilies rather. Salsa's big out there. Some of their breakfast foods and everything. So.
Well, I like that.
Yeah. Definitely for sure. So coming up today on Tigers SRD, we're going to be talking a little bit about spring training, some of the headlines that we've called like clockwork. Derek Norris being a complete jackass. One former major leaguer deciding that he got in the drug game, and the Kansas City scout getting escorted out of the Juniors open training sessions for unsigned free agents. And we'll lead into that a little bit because the media was barred from the IMG Academy, which is where the players were doing the workouts at. And this is in Bradenton, Florida. More than 90 players remain without agreements among the 166 who did the free agency clause in November. And there's going to be 15 more players arriving at the end of the week. So a lot of them are all represented by Scott Boras. So you're looking at Jake Arrieta, JD Martinez, Mike Moustakas, and Eric Hosmer. And, of course, Boras said that from his perspective, quote, the last 4 or 5 days have been more like a true December free agency. We've got a lot of calls from a lot of teams, and we're working negotiations through players, which just sounds like a bunch of PR nonsense. But, nevertheless, Chris, it's strange. It's strange to see this. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this, where you just have this secret camp and it just seems a little surreal.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of it is. I suppose the main purpose is just to get these players out there like they would be training, practicing and getting ready for the season. But I don't think it's going to suddenly attract a bunch of teams. These teams know that these players exist. I don't think they're going to be like, oh yeah, I forgot about Neil Walker. So yeah, it's just a very strange situation. It's almost like teams are just going to be happy to fill their rosters. If they have any open spots in their roster, they'll just take some random guy from their minors, or rather than pay any money to these sort of mid-level, low-level free agents.
Yeah, and the thing is too is what I find interesting so far is that you're not hearing anything about the mid-level guys. So it seems like it's the same 4 or 5 guys that have been mentioned. But that's astounding how many free agents are left out there.
Yeah, it really is remarkable. The only area where it's getting kind of thin is with relief pitching. But you can, if you have a hole at just about any other position, you could probably fill it right now if you wanted to with a free agent. You're right. We basically only hear about the couple of big names that are still left. People talk about Arrieta and Martinez, but I mentioned Neil Walker, like Jonathan Lucroy, these mid-level guys who should should expect like a 2-year, $18 to $20 million deal or something like that. You just hear nothing about them. Jared Dyson, these guys who could be solid 2-win players, just nothing.
Yeah, and even Tony Watson's still out there, isn't he?
Yeah, he is one of the few reliever, like the solid relief options. The one thing I would like to see, there are a bunch of sort of starters remaining. I would be curious if a team would just take a chance on someone like Edison Volquez and just say, no, you're a reliever now. But I don't know. Doesn't seem to be much movement on that front either.
Yeah, it was interesting, too, even like a guy like Andrew Kashner, who I would thought the Tigers would take a waiver on a little bit with his deal instead of Travis Wood, which, they could if Kashner has a really good first half, they could trade him for a couple prospects because that's what they would do. But Kashner's that was the one that surprises me the most. I mean, I know his numbers weren't exactly fantastic, but still, the way the like a team like the Nationals or something like that could use him out of the bullpen. I think the Edison idea would work well in Washington.
Yeah, it would just be interesting to see some team out there that maybe they don't need a starter, but there are pitchers out there who maybe just give them a shot in the bullpen, sign a guy for a 1-year deal, and if it works out, relievers are making a lot of money now if they're pitching well. So, and I could see it being a win-win, but for one of these starters who might not be looking at a major league job, so somebody like that. But I mean, Kashner is a guy I've never been crazy about him, but he is. He's had some success. He had a solid year last year. You'd think somebody would pick him up for just to fill out their rotation, but I don't know. It's one of the more mystifying things about this whole spending freeze. It's not just the big guys who aren't getting that huge payday. It's the mid-level guys and the low-level guys. None of them are getting deals.
It's interesting too. Talk about rotations. Speaking of which, Tim Lincecum is going to be hulked up Tim Lincecum, if you will, the Incredible Hulk. All right, I use enough Hulkisms. It will be holding a workout for teams on Thursday, and one of the teams that's going to be there is the Detroit Tigers, which does fascinate me. I know a lot of people over at I know Bless You Boys is all excited about it. Bulked up, Chris. I'm skeptical, and I'm because my nature, of course, but. This is a guy who posted a 2-6 record with a 9.16 ERA and 38 innings pitched his last time with the Angels. So this is a guy who really, after 2013, just this velocity's kind of got worse and worse after the years went on. But still, he looks ripped. He looks like he wants to still play. And the Tigers look like they're interested. So if the Tigers are interested in him, do you think they even have a chance? Because I mean, this is a guy who seems like a West Coast kind of guy, and the Twins are also confirmed they're going to be there too, just as a division.
I mean, I get the feeling that any team that is willing to sign him has a chance at this point. I mean, it really is. Remember, he was coming on the bullpen in the 2012 World Series. I mean, he was already that far into his decline that he wasn't really a viable starting option anymore. And he tried that comeback with, was it the Angels legend, Tim Lincecum. I just, I mean, it's fun. It's a little bit of a sideshow, and I hope that he can come back, but I'm not expecting much. I mean, the big knock on him coming out of college, that's why he slipped to the 9th or 11th pick or whatever he was that he was too small and had a funky delivery. And, he made everybody look foolish those first couple of years. He was a monster in his first 2 full seasons. But then it basically came to pass that his, being that small in that unorthodox delivery, if things start getting out of whack and the velocity comes down, then there's not much there. And I think his career is basically over.
I think so too. This is kind of a grasp for straws kind of thing. But I mean, if the Tigers take a look at him, sign him for maybe a year deal, but a lot of Tiger fans want Lincecum to come here because of his pedigree.
Well, there's nothing to lose for the Tigers. I mean, they're planning on not competing this year. I mean, I don't know how many innings they have to go around, but if they want, if they want to try to get some star power, I suppose you could bring him in. But it's more a sideshow than anything else.
Yeah, and speaking of sideshows, by the way, and this was kind of a sideshow in Chicago with Avisail Garcia won his salary arbitration. I wanted to bring that up because the White Sox offer was $5.85 million, and he'll get a raise to $6.7 million. And here's a guy who came off a year, 330 batting average, 18 home runs, 80 RBIs, and it seemed like that was one of those things that like he wasn't going to settle, and he shouldn't have to settle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean it is strange being as a Tigers fan. We haven't seen. I can't remember the last Tigers player who actually went to arbitration. It just doesn't seem to happen. So it always feels.
Jose Iglesias was the first one since.
Did he actually go to arbitration this year? Oh, my bad.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. It's a weird process where you, as the team, you have to argue why your player, who you theoretically like and want to be contributing for you, isn't as good as he thinks he is and isn't worth as much as he is. And it just seems like there's bad blood there. I would do everything I could to avoid arbitration, but yeah, no, it's good for Garcia. I mean, I'm skeptical that he can repeat what he did last year. I think there was some batted ball luck in there, but he did seem to make some strides, and you never know, man. You got to get paid when you can. We said we were just talking about Lincecum, and I remember he got a pretty big monetary award in when he was arbitration eligible. I believe I thought it was like $18 million a year or something like that. But I don't know if he ever got a really good free agent contract. It was over that quickly for him. So get that money, Avi.
Yeah, collect it, man. I mean, like I said, doing a good job of. I mean, his numbers, like I said, we thought that for a while with the Tigers, he was going when he was early on with that trade, the Tigers got the best of the deal, but he seems like he's hitting into form. Speaking of things that are not hitting into form, however, is former All-Star pitcher Esteban Loaiza was denied drug recently on this week was denied he was in the drug trade essentially. He was arrested last week for possession of and transportation for sale of more than 10 kilograms of cocaine or heroin. So he was using a false compartment to smuggle drugs, and this guy made $43 million over a 14 season, and if he's convicted, he would face 20 years in jail, face up to 20 years, 8 months in prison if convicted. And he was over the San Diego County border where he got pulled over. So
so what was it? 44 pounds of cocaine and heroin. And he's claiming he's not in the drug trade. So that's just for his own personal use.
Yeah.
He's a big party guy. Sometimes he likes to break out a couple kilos of heroin and cocaine. Just for fun. No, these stories like this are always mystifying. Who was it? Was it Nate Newton, the football player who got caught with like 20 pounds of weed or something like that?
Something ridiculous like that, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you always wonder if these guys are just bad dudes who happen to be good at something, baseball, and then when they aren't doing aren't doing that, they just go right back into their criminal ways. Like to a certain extent, Aaron Hernandez never really stopped being a criminal, even though he was a pro athlete. And the only other thing I can think of is that, there are a couple other things. Pro athletes are pretty good at blowing their money. Particularly, maybe a guy who didn't have terrific financial advice, and you become used to a certain lifestyle, and you probably find yourself around people who live that similar lifestyle who might have gotten there through a little bit more illicit means, and suddenly you're like, well, I need the money. Yeah, I'll do that. And next thing you know, you're in prison for 20 years. But it's certainly a strange story.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things where you see how much money he's made, and you're talking about what they spent on, but I think he was talking about he was telling his agent that he was selling Mexican made hats. So this is a guy who won 21 ball games in 2003, and now it's yeah. I think of Antoine Walker had been bankruptcy, or Mike Tyson had a bunch of guys in his payroll, so much so that when he got out of the fight game, he had barely had any money. There's so many stories like this.
Yeah, I think there was even a 30 for 30 about athletes who went broke. But I was also looking. I think Chris Bosch's mom was just arrested for drug trafficking or something like that. It's just I don't know. It's weird. Some people just can't get out of the game.
Yeah, but, it like Hollywood Henderson too comes to mind too.
Yeah. No, it's I don't know. Maybe he really wanted to buy something and thought he could get away with it. I don't know, man. It's not a risk I would take. But that's not me. Maybe I'm not. Who knows? Maybe it's his version of the competitive spirit that he had to. That they say Michael Jordan always had to gamble and play golf and stuff because he's so competitive. He had to do something. Maybe otherwise it was so competitive he had to be the best drug dealer around. I don't know.
Best time, or well, never mind. I'm not gonna break down the drug trade and make it into war stats.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a way to do it, but I couldn't. I'm just drawing a blank. But speaking of things that no, that's a bad segue. But just let's talk about the Tigers. It's Tigers podcast.
Well, we could say people are going to need a lot of drugs.
Yeah, there you go. I think I saw a headline today that fans are not enthusiastic about spring training as they once been. It's nice way to state the obvious.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a rough year. I think the enthusiasm will slowly start to come back for spring training, but when everybody knows there is no hope, it doesn't seem quite as. That's always been the theme of spring training. Even if you're not great, you look at your team and you go, I could see them. They got a chance. But not when the team is, actively trying to lose or actively rebuilding. But I still am excited because it means baseball's coming.
Yeah, me too. I'm just excited that we keep talking about that, but it's true. And however, it's kind of a bad way to start the Tigers aspect of the podcast is that Derek Norris, who was asked about the media about the whole incident, what happened with domestic violence, and this is exactly what he said: "What doesn't kill you makes you strong. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I think I learned a lot from it. So bless you boys. There was a lot of people on Twitter upset about this comment, and well, Chris, I don't I see the outrage and why people should be upset.
Yeah, it's a terrible. What you want from somebody in that situation is contrition and acknowledgement that they've done something wrong, and what instead you got was something like, "Oh, I'm gonna grow from this. I'm gonna," and just the choice of phrase, "Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger." That doesn't. When you're talking about domestic violence, that's really bad. That I conjure images of well, I beat up my wife, but it didn't kill her, so now she's stronger for it. I know that's not what he meant, but I can't help but think that. And it's just man, why did the Tigers ever get involved in this, dude? What? I understand you want to give people a second chances, but they just every step of the way they've mishandled this. And for a guy who's probably going to be a AAA, it just doesn't seem worth it at all. But I think we talked before. They seem to not anticipate the reaction from fans and media, and they also seem to have not prepared Derek Norris to talk about it, which is another troubling sign from this organization.
Yeah, there's no PR person that kind of talked to the media friendly and not bring it up. But you're right. So show some sort of contrition, and he's not, clearly.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I think, was it Katie Strang said she's going to have a full article on it because she's been the one who's really been hitting this thing hard and doing a great job. But so maybe there's something more to his quote. But I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up getting cut. But then again, I don't know. The Tigers seem kind of oblivious to this all. So who knows?
Yeah, the tone deaf is kind of way to go. It's bad karma all around. So, but overall, look at what the Tigers have been able to. You saw the headlines. Warren Suphold getting back into shape. The Jim Aducci and just those kind of same old things. But so far, the early storylines for the Tigers, there's really nothing to report yet. It's just pitchers and catchers are just reporting. But Chris, have you seen anything or heard anything that stands out to you?
No, I usually like to see the stuff about, I think Finnick did a story about Perez that was pretty good, about Franklin Perez, how they, what's his nickname? Paraguas? Eyebrow or umbrella because of his eyebrows. I thought it was kind of funny. I'm on a podcast right now. Sorry. Sorry.
It's okay.
When you get these family get-togethers and people, you can't go 10 feet without someone offering you a sandwich. But yeah, I look for stuff about the. I'm a prospect guy anyway, so I look for stuff about the young guys, see how they're doing, how they're looking. Yeah, but that's basically the only thing I've seen so far. I saw that Grayson Griner had a baby. His wife had a baby, so good for them.
Tigers catchers getting busy.
Yeah. There's one good catcher storyline that. And you could see him. They added him to the 40-man, so you could see him this year. Probably will, just based on catchers sometimes get their hands broken and so forth. But I said, I've been out here in Colorado, so I've been I haven't followed a ton of the news. I don't know if it was today the actual first day of camp, like official pitchers and catchers.
It was yesterday. It was yesterday. It was official pitchers and catchers.
Yes.
I think.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know. What else did I see? I saw that the Zimmerman got another shot of whatever, like
Christ,
in his back or his neck. That just doesn't seem. It just seems bad. I haven't. The other story. What was it? Cabrera and his paternity issues and child support. There's really not a lot of great storylines this spring so far. It would be nice to get some baseball.
It explains why this podcast is only going to be 30, 40 minutes tops this week.
Well, I'd like to get out there and we argue about hey, maybe Mike Gerber and Kristen Stewart can help or something, or Leonis Martin looks good, but for now it's like we were joking, and just the classic traditional storylines about.
They're gonna play the game the right way. What the hell was that storyline last week?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think it is just one of those weird things where the media has to write stories, and so the coaches and the players have to say something, and so it just ends up being an endless string of cliches, like best shape of his life and. Added a new pitch, playing the right way, focusing on defense, all this stuff. It's spring training. The guys are stretching and throwing the ball around.
Yeah, they're not really going to get a game action for a while, and even then, they're limited on what they could do.
Mm-hmm. Or that's South Florida Moccasins. Is that not South Florida? Who is it? Who do they always play for their first game?
Oh,
they're the Moccasins.
Oh, God. Florida Southern.
Florida Southern, there you go, yeah. Which is fun. Every now and then you can count on. A couple years ago, it was a player from Florida Southern hit a homer off Joe Jimenez. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then they drafted him later in the year. So they're like, well, that's good. We'll take that. He hasn't done anything, but, Matt Joyce, of course, was from Florida Southern. So. That's something to look at, I suppose. And we'll be a friend of the podcast, Dan Hasty, will be calling some games. That's always good to hopefully check those out. I don't know exactly if they've announced which dates, but
I think
I'll definitely be listening.
I think they did announce a couple of dates, and I'm actually sitting here and look forward to that. So yeah, for now, I promise you, this is the Tigers SRD Light show this week. So
Yeah, well, I don't know what else.
Yeah, we'll have to. We can revisit the draft.
Yeah, I've been getting deep into the draft a little bit, but it's still, I mean, college baseball basically starts this weekend. I'm sure a couple high school players have done some stuff, but yeah, it is kind of the calm before the baseball storm.
And with that in mind, yeah, this is good. I think it's a good place to end the podcast, because I think that we've covered pretty much what's going on this week, and we'll probably end up doing more of a deeper dive next week with the draft. And I do want to talk about the opener in the Big Ten. Indiana, by the way, is favored to win the Big Ten this year in baseball.
Yeah, well, they've had some good teams in the last couple of years. The one year they had Schwarber, what was it, 2013 or something like that? They made the College World Series. Michigan's got a pretty good team. Illinois usually has a solid club, so I don't know. Big Ten baseball can be kind of fun. It's not. It's certainly not SEC baseball or ACC baseball, but sometimes it's fun to see. You could kind of spot the MLB prospects because they stand out so much, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, especially in non-traditional schools that are, like in the Big Ten or something like that, for example, that do stand out. In those schools that typically, it's always SEC schools do really well in the high rounds of the draft. Yeah, I mean,
the SEC, basically playing in SEC baseball, it's close to playing in high A. You're facing that many future high draft picks and future major leaguers. It's pretty high level baseball. So that's why Tigers love drafting guys from the SEC. Florida and Vanderbilt and Arkansas and Alabama and Auburn and all those schools.
Tennessee, they're a big fan of Tennessee too.
Tennessee, yeah. Simcox and Stewart were from there, and Will Maddox. But yeah, there'll be plenty to talk about. I don't know. I've been deep digging into the draft as much as I can lately because of that piece I was writing that I finished. But yeah, so I don't know. There'll be more to talk about soon.
Well, absolutely.
All right.
So, hold on. I gotta edit that part out, though. Hold on a second. I was yawning. Okay. All right. So, with that, we'll be probably back next week. We'll probably have the full assortment of topics. I'm sure by then we'll have some more information on Tigers camp. We'll be watching that. We'll be talking some prospects next week. And I do want to talk a little bit of draft, so maybe we'll get Brian in here and talk draft at that point. Yeah. Check out all our podcasts here at sportsradiodetroit.com. Don't forget to check out the latest Out of Bounds and new Lions host. So check that out. A little more information on that on our website, sportsradiodetroit.com. For now, we'll see you next week.